Good evening, Bururuh and all of my classmates. My name is Clementine and today I will present about the ELT textbook. So this article was written by Richard in 2014 and this is the outline, the things that I will discuss, that I will deliver today. So first, there's introduction and then I will show you the types of published materials, and then we will also discuss about the concept that how the teachers or how the writers of textbook bring the concept into the classroom, and then the issues involved in evaluating English language textbooks. So there are two issues here, and then we will also learn how to choose textbook and how to adapt textbook. And after discussing all those things, then I will give you one conclusion about our article today. Let's go to the first thing, which is introduction. So we are talking about course book or textbook, and here textbook gives benefit for the users. In this case, the users can be teachers or students. So for teachers, coursebook can be the main teaching resource. It means the teachers use the textbook. The teachers see that the textbooks is the main source when they are teaching, when they are delivering materials to the students. And also sometimes the book can be used as the syllabus, because a textbook, whether it is national textbook or commercial textbook, usually has the outline of the lesson. So there are the language components, and then there are the language skills that are targeted by the writer, and then also the list of the activities, and then the exercises, and also there are a list of articles or materials that can be used by the teachers. So this is really like the syllabus. Usually the teachers follow the outline, follow the flow of the textbook, and then the teachers can add other materials. And when the teachers were asked to describe the role of the textbook, then they can use a lot of terms, like for example recipe, and then survival kit, compass. Here we can conclude that actually teachers see textbook differently. Some teachers see textbook as the main teaching resource. However, other teachers can see that textbooks as their secondary source. So they just use the textbook whenever they need, not all the time, not all the lessons they just focus on the textbook. They can focus on other things or on other materials, on other primary sources that they believe. And then for the students, textbook can give learners a sense of independence. Why? Because as we know that nowadays some textbooks can't provide DVD for the students. Here the students can listen to audio related to the materials, and then the students can have online exercises so that they can access all things related that they are learning at home without the presence of the teacher. And when we are talking about online exercises, usually the students can do the exercises, and after doing those exercises they can check the answers by themselves. So they have already had the answer key. So that's why coursebooks can give learners a sense of independence. And this is the types of published materials. Actually, there are several types of published coursebooks, such as the international markets in Indonesia, especially in Surabaya. There are some schools that follow or that choose international textbook. So they do not use national textbook anymore, but they use international textbooks such as Cambridge and then National Geography. And then there are published coursebook that the materials are designed for specific age group, like young learners or adult, and then for specific skills. So some textbooks have all 4 skills in it, But other textbooks may have like only one skill, so the textbooks for reading or the textbook for listening. And then there are also textbooks which are designed for specific purposes, and then for exam preparation such as TOEFL, IELTS, and also the textbooks which are designed for reference materials like the dictionary, and then for the self-study materials and for readers. So we can see that the many types of published course books are actually designed for the readers. Like who are the readers, and then what is the expectation of the readers. When the readers want to develop only their listening skills, then they can use the only listening textbooks, something like that. And then, as I said before, that nowadays textbooks have a lot of components like DVDs, and then ebook, online workbooks, and then assessment package also. So sometimes some textbooks, so after the end of the unit, like for example after 2 units, so the textbooks can provide a review for unit 1 and unit 2, so the students can have other exercises about those 2 units, about the units that they have already learned. Next, we are going to talk about the concept, from concept to classroom. Here I will show you the characteristic of effective textbooks. So based on the writer of this article, actually there are several characteristics that we can see, so that we can say that the textbooks is really effective. In conclusion, the effective textbooks can guide the students to learn independently, and then the textbooks also have very clear outline, like the targets, and then the syllabus, the plan, and also the materials. The materials must be very clear and must be relevant to the goals of this textbook. And also sometimes effective textbooks may provide the students with strategies to use that they can use in their learning. And also the textbooks provide the students some features so that the students can track their progress. And how about writing a textbook? It is believed that while many teachers are successful in helping learners in classroom-based learning, developing a book that does the same things calls upon a very different set of skills. It means that when the teachers feel that helping students in classroom is easy, but sometimes they have difficulties in writing textbook. Why? So I will give you the reasons. First, we have to remember that a textbook is a unified. It means that we cannot just choose random materials. We have to really organize it. We have to organize the activities. We have to organize also the materials. So one textbook is unified as an example, from unit 1 until unit 10. We cannot like just unit 1 this is a random thing, and then unit 2 other things which are not related. So this can be difficult for some people to organize all things to be same, to be unity in one book. Also, textbooks needs to be different in conception and organization, whether the writers want to write a national textbook or commercial textbook. So actually national textbooks and commercial textbooks must have different organization, must have different goals. As an example, to write a national textbook, usually we have to follow the regulation or the guidelines or the objectives from our government. But if we are going to write a commercial textbook, then we have to have wider perception, because we do not just focus on one country, we do not focus on one school, we do not focus on one classroom, but we have to make it general. We have to make our textbook can be used by other teachers. This is related to number 3, that the goals of the materials and the activities they contain must be much more explicit. Especially this is for commercial textbooks. We compare when we are in our classroom. So in our classroom, we really know our students' interest. We know our students' needs, because we really know them. We really know the students. We know the situation. We know the schools. We know the classroom. We know the limitation. However, when we are designing a textbook, we do not know about the users, right? Like we do not know who will use our textbook. Maybe teachers in different cities, maybe teachers outside the countries, we never know, right? So when we are designing commercial textbooks, especially commercial textbooks, then we have to prepare it, we have to design our textbooks so that it can be used under different circumstances. It can be used by different teachers, because each teachers must have different teaching styles, and then we have to design the textbook so that it could be suitable for different levels of training. It could be suitable for the random users. I said random because we do not set the subject, but we do not know who will use it later. And then 2 approaches. In writing textbooks, there are 2 approaches. First, it could be from teacher to publishers. It means that the teachers can write a textbook by themselves, and then they can write or they can choose the uniqueness of their textbooks, like why their textbooks is unique, what is the difference, or what are differences between their textbooks with other textbooks. And then after they design the textbook, then they can propose it to the publishers, and then they can ask the publisher about the quality of their textbook, whether the publisher will accept it or not. And the second thing, it could be also from publishers to teachers. So actually, usually the publishers set the guidelines, and then the publishers can require or can ask some teachers that they see, oh, these teachers are suitable to develop my textbook with this outline, with this guideline, with these objectives, something like that. And then here we are talking the issues involved in evaluating English language textbooks. So we have 2 issues: authenticity of language and representation of content. Why 2 issues? Because we have to remember that English language textbooks provide information about English, an example of how English is used, and also they contain real world information. When we're talking about real world information or something that happens in our real world, that we have to talk about the authenticity. Let's go to the first issue, which is authenticity of the language. Authenticity gives learners a taste of the real world. So when the writer can provide authentic materials, then actually the writers can train the students with the real situation. So the students get the input about how the language is used in real environment. So not only in textbook, not only in the design setting, but in real world. However, while the use of authentic text in materials may be a desirable goal, it is not always feasible. Why? Okay, let's talking about listening. For example, if we are going to use listening authentic materials for listening activities for our students, sometimes those authentic materials are too difficult, so that we have to edit it, so that we have to find the audio or the video that is really related to our course, that is really related to our activities, to our requirements. So yeah, sometimes we cannot fulfill this goals, we cannot use authentic text. And in this case, the writer of this article believed that authenticity of process may be more important. So we cannot put aside our focus about authenticity of text, but we can change our focus. We can focus more on authenticity of process. As an example, if I cannot find authentic materials about for my students, in this case about listening exercises, so I cannot choose or I cannot find the switchable authentic audio or video for my students, then I can focus on authenticity of process. For example, if I want my students to listen to find information, then I have to find the audio that provides them with such process. And the same when we are teaching reading, if we want our students to focus on the process, on finding effect, cause and effect, then we have to find the materials with such feature. So there is the cause, there is the effect, and how those cause and effect is related. So we have to focus on that process. This is the authenticity of process. And when we are talking about the authenticity of language, some textbooks also input the language that are usually used in real conversation. In real conversation, such as well, but, typical, and other expressions that we usually see in our daily things, in our daily communication. And the second issue is representation of context. In writing textbook, the author has to make decision about what kinds of situation and text will be used and who the participants are. So when we are teaching in classroom, we have the situation, but when we are writing a textbook, we have to design it. We have to think about the situation. We have to make a decision about it. Why? Because the choices of our decision will make different kinds of messages to students. So if we want our students to achieve A, then we have to see, we have to design the situation that is reachable to our goals, something like that. And then textbook writing involves consideration of how values are communicated through language. Remember that the use of language is for communication. It means when we are teaching language or when we are writing a language textbooks, then we have to design also how the values that we want, how we communicate it, how the students can communicate it, using the target language. Nowadays, the textbooks are more sensitive because some controversial topics are generally avoided. So the textbooks may focus on the general things or the general topics that are or that happens around the world, around the environment, but there's no controversial topics. However, some teachers believe that controversial topics may be good for their students because their students can be trained to be more critical, and then also their students can have the feeling that they are in imaginary world. As an example, because controversial issues mean like the students can be in the gray area, so not in black, not in white, something like that. So yes, about controversial issues, some teachers believe it is bad and some teachers believe it is good. And this is how to choose textbook. Okay, in order to choose textbook, then we have to analyze the needs of 3 factors. We can analyze it from the institutional side, and then we can analyze it from the teacher side, or we can analyze it from the learner side. It will be good if we can analyze it for those 3 factors. Like the institutional, we have to analyze it from the classroom condition, and then from the teacher we have to see the teacher's proficiency, and about the learners we have to see the learners, like the age, the needs, the interest, the cultural background, and the proficiency level. And when, if we are going to evaluate textbook, then we can do that in 2 times. Before using the textbook, so we can evaluate it before using the textbook, or while using it and after using the textbook. Before using the textbook, then we can start to evaluate the general information, like the year of publication, the title of book, and the distribution, about the materials, about the test in the textbook, and also about the subdivision. For example, in one textbook there are 6 units with 4 parts, and then part 1 about this one until part 4 about this one. So we can evaluate the general things first, and then after evaluating the general things, then we can try to evaluate it using the checklist. We can develop the checklist, or we can follow the checklist which has been developed by the government. Usually the checklist could be about, or could cover several aspects such as the aims, and then the design and organization, or the language contents, the skills, topics, and then the teacher's book or practical consideration. However, the writer of this article believes that sometimes this checklist is too subjective, so that the writer also proposed another way to evaluate the textbook, which is using other consideration. First, we can talk about the pedagogical approach we can consider it. So what is pedagogical approach? Pedagogical approach, for example, if it is a speaking book, then it is important for us to check the theory of spoken interaction which is covered or used by the writer of the textbook. And then we have to check also what aspect of spoken interaction that is written or that is put in the book. And then the second is about the methodology. Here we have to see whether the methodology used can lead the content of the textbook into like appropriate activities, so that we can see that those activities can lead our students to reach the goals, whether those activities cover the skills that should be developed that is related to the goals of our teaching. And the third is about the language content. So we have to check also the text and the linguistic input that is given in the textbook. So we have to check whether those input, the language content, is suitable to our students' needs and to our students' proficiency level. We have to remember that do not choose textbooks which are too difficult for our students. So we have to consider the language content and the difficulty level to our students' proficiency. And then also we have in language content, we have also we have to consider about the authenticity, because we have talked about the authenticity as the issues in textbook. Then it's better for us to consider it, because authenticity can help our students to feel the real world, so they are trained to communicate in their daily activities using the target language. And then other content, then we can check the cultural things that is written or that is given in the textbook, whether it's relevant to our students or whether it's relevant to the topic or to the course of our study. And then teacher appeal. In teacher appeal, then we have to check whether the textbooks are designed for teacher-centered classroom. So this is only designed for teacher, or the textbook are designed for group-based learning. So we have to check it, because when we are focused on group-based learning but we use the teacher-centered style, then it will be not suitable for us. And then the last is the learner appeal. Then we can consider also the interest of the learners, like the topics. So let's imagine, like if our students are young learners, then we choose the textbook that the topic is too difficult, like the politics, and then about the society, and about other topics which are too difficult for young learners. So it will not be suitable to their learners, right? However, when we are teaching young learners and we choose textbook which has very interesting topic, like a story, short story, and then imagine something imaginary, that this will be more suitable to young learners. So we have to see this factor, the learner appeal also. Okay, then after evaluating the textbook in pre-use, we can also evaluate the textbook while using it. So why? Because evaluating textbook while using it can help us to check whether the textbook is effective to be used or not, and then we can also to provide feedbacks about the use or the implementation of all activities in the textbook. And evaluating while using it also help us to understand the textbook. When we are familiar with the textbook, when we really understand about the textbook, then we can adapt it. And also after being familiar with the textbook, then we can see the limitation of this textbook, so that we can see whether we need other sources or not. And if we need it, then we can also know which other sources that we really need, so that the use of this textbook can be very effective in our teaching learning process. And the next aspect is what is about the questions that we can use to evaluate it, like is there too much or too little material, and then is the level suitable for our students' proficiency, and what aspects of the book are proving least or most effective. And the last is what do teachers and students like most or least about the book. And in use evaluation, we can do several things. We can observe it, we can record the use of the textbook, and then we can also use the feedback. So the feedback comes from the teacher or the students, whether the students enjoy using it or not. And then we can also use written reports, review it. We can write the review, or we can also use other people's review about the textbook, about the similar textbook, as our guidance. And then we can also use students' review, as I said before. And after evaluating while using it, then we come at the stage of evaluating the textbook after using it or post-use. So what is the function of this post-use evaluation? Actually, post-use evaluation provides information that will help decide if the book will continue to be used. So after the evaluation, the result of the evaluation in in-use session, then we can make a conclusion whether we will continue using this textbook or not. And this is adapting the textbook, how to adapt it and why we need to adapt it. Adaptation may be required to reflect the needs of a specific teaching context. And then in adapting the textbook, there are several things that we can do. First, we can add materials or to address an examination requirements. For example, in our school requirements, then we have to use multiple choices questions. So we can add other materials so that we can train our students how to do the tips to do multiple choices questions, what they need to pay attention, what they need to know, what they need to understand from the multiple choice questions. And then we can also extend to provide additional practice. So we can also add other practices like about grammar or about vocabularies, so that our textbook will be richer, then it will be more effective to our students. And then we can do localizing. Localizing means that we try to use the activity from the textbook, but we design it or we relate it with our local environment. For example, the activity is discussion or about related to interview. Then the students have to discuss or interview their classmates about one topic. However, the topic in the textbook is not related to the environment. For example, the students have to interview their friends about what they do or what they feel about winter season. However, in Indonesia, we do not have winter season. It means that the students will be confused to give the answers. Then we can change it and we can relate it to our environment, about flood, maybe about the wet season or the dry season. And then we can also modify the content, whether maybe because the contents are not suitable to our students, like are not suitable to their age and to their social background or to their cultural background. And also we can reorganizing the content, we can reorganize the activity, we can reorganize the material so that it will be more suitable to our needs, to our situation. And then also we can modify the tasks. We can modify the task. For example, there is an audio from the textbook, and because we want to focus on authenticity of process, we want our students to get the process of collecting information by listening, then we can modify the audio, or we can play it to our students several times, and then we can cut it to several segments so that our students can know the step, can follow the step of collecting information by listening to audio. However, we have to remember that the adaptation could be done after teachers become familiar with the textbook. That's why I said before, evaluating the textbook while using it can help the teachers to know the textbook, can help the teachers to be more familiar with the textbook. Because after the teachers become familiar, then the teachers can know which acts of adaptation that they need to do, which part they need to improve, so that the textbook can be more suitable to their students. And that's all, and I will give you one conclusion. Here, Textbooks are an important resource for teachers and learners in language teaching, and their role in a language course should be carefully planned and monitored. As I said before in the beginning of this presentation, that textbooks may give benefits for the users, both teachers and students. Because textbooks are really influential, then it's important for us as the teachers to evaluate it first. And also it is important for the writers to really plan it, to really organize it, so that the textbook can be really effective, can be really useful, and can give all good benefits and influences to the teachers, especially the students, in the teaching and learning process. Okay, so that's all about the ELT textbook, the discussion of the ELT textbooks. And if you have any questions, you can ask in our forum in Bella, and I will try to answer it. Thank you.